Emotional blackmail is a subtle yet powerful tactic where individuals use manipulation, guilt, and threats to gain control over someone else's actions. Emotional blackmail is as prevalent as ever, not only in personal relationships, but also in workplaces and online spaces. The person doing the blackmail exploits fears and vulnerabilities to achieve their own goals, often leaving their victims emotionally drained. Let's explore how you can recognize and handle emotional blackmail. What is emotional blackmail? Emotional blackmail is a psychological manipulation technique where someone uses your vulnerabilities to control your actions. According to Dr. Susan Forward, a leading expert in this area, emotional blackmail involves using the victim's fears, desires, or sense of duty to coerce them into compliance. The blackmailer's tactics are often insidious, making the victim feel responsible for keeping the relationship intact at all costs. Surveyed by the American Psychological Association, over 60% of respondents reported experiencing some form of emotional manipulation in personal relationships. Emotional blackmail is often categorized as a form of emotional abuse, as it manipulates individuals into acting against their best interests to prevent perceived negative consequences like rejection or anger. Common tactics used in emotional blackmail. Emotional blackmailers use several specific tactics to manipulate their victims. Guilt trips are perhaps the most commonly recognized form, where the blackmailer uses statements like, "If you really loved me, you would do this," to make you feel obligated. Threats and ultimatums are also popular, such as threatening to end a relationship if demands are not met. According to Dr. Susan Forward, these threats often target a person's deepest insecurities, like their fear of abandonment or need for validation. Researchers found that emotional blackmail in family settings often involves manipulation around social media, such as giving the silent treatment or unfollowing someone as a punishment. These tactics work because they tap into primal fears and vulnerabilities, making it feel almost impossible for victims to say no. Who are the victims of emotional blackmail? Victims of emotional blackmail often share several common traits that make them more susceptible. They tend to be highly empathetic, people pleasers, and conflict-averse individuals. A recent study by Positive Psychology found that individuals scoring high on neuroticism and low on assertiveness were more likely to fall prey to emotional blackmailers. Such individuals often have an intense fear of abandonment and a need for approval, making it difficult for them to resist manipulative demands. Additionally, a report by the World Health Organization highlighted that people with a history of abusive relationships are more likely to encounter emotional blackmail again, as they often lack the self-esteem and boundary-setting skills needed to protect themselves. The impact of emotional blackmail. The impact of emotional blackmail is profound, with significant psychological and physical consequences. Victims often experience anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem, and in severe cases, they may develop symptoms akin to post-traumatic stress disorder. Research from the National Institute of Mental Health indicates that those subjected to emotional blackmail frequently endure a persistent sense of guilt and isolation, making it challenging to form healthy relationships in the future. Chronic exposure to such manipulation can also manifest physically, leading to symptoms such as headaches, sleep disturbances, digestive problems, and weakened immune responses. This emotional abuse doesn't just inflict temporary pain. It can have lasting effects that undermine an individual's mental and physical health, illustrating the broad-reaching impact of emotional blackmail on overall well-being. Emotional blackmail in relationships. In romantic relationships, emotional blackmail can be extremely damaging because it often goes unnoticed until significant harm is done. According to Barry Davenport, author of Signs of Emotional Abuse, emotional blackmailers are often highly attuned to their partner's insecurities and will use this information against them. The State of Relationship Health survey conducted by the Relationship Research Institute found that 42% of respondents admitted to having been emotionally blackmailed by a partner at least once. Such manipulation leads to a toxic environment where the victim feels they must constantly prove their worth to keep their partner happy. In many cases, victims are left questioning their self-worth and feeling like they are responsible for every problem in the relationship. Family dynamics and emotional blackmail. Emotional blackmail is prevalent in family settings, where the blackmailer often uses love and loyalty as leverage. Parents, for instance, might say, "After everything I've sacrificed for you, you can't even do this one thing for me." Such tactics can leave children feeling guilty and obligated to comply, even as adults. Family therapists reported an uptick in cases involving adult children who felt trapped by their parents' manipulative demands, especially around cultural or familial obligations. Family dynamics are inherently complex, and the use of emotional blackmail can complicate these relationships further, leading to long-term resentment and emotional distance. Emotional blackmail in the workplace. Emotional blackmail isn't confined to personal relationships. It frequently occurs in the workplace as well. In a study conducted by the American Management Association, nearly 38% of employees reported experiencing some form of emotional coercion from supervisors or colleagues. The coercion often took the form of veiled threats about job security or advancement opportunities. Employees were made to feel that if they didn't comply with unreasonable demands, such as working unpaid overtime, they were not team players and might face repercussions. This type of emotional manipulation can lead to severe burnout, decreased productivity, and overall job dissatisfaction, ultimately affecting the workplace's health. How to recognize emotional blackmail. Recognizing emotional blackmail is essential for protecting yourself from manipulation. Red flags include feeling consistently guilty, making decisions mainly to avoid another person's anger, and feeling as though no matter what you do, it's never enough to satisfy them. According to Dr. Susan Forward, emotional blackmailers often use charm and excessive praise in the beginning to gain trust, only to later exploit these vulnerabilities when making demands. The American Psychological Association also highlights that those who can spot these signs early on are significantly less likely to become repeat victims of manipulation. By learning to identify these tactics, individuals can establish necessary boundaries, which are crucial for safeguarding their mental and emotional well-being. How to handle emotional blackmail. Establishing boundaries. The best way to handle emotional blackmail is by establishing firm boundaries that prioritize your well-being. Start by communicating clearly. Using "I feel" statements helps express discomfort without sounding accusatory, which can de-escalate tensions. It's also important to stay calm, as reacting emotionally may only empower the blackmailer further. Always remember that you have the right to make decisions without feeling guilty or responsible for someone else's emotional reactions. If a relationship consistently affects your mental health negatively, it might be necessary to walk away for your own well-being. Seeking professional help, such as therapy, can be immensely beneficial, providing you with tools to understand manipulation better and offering emotional support to rebuild strength. Healing after emotional blackmail. Healing after emotional blackmail is a gradual and often challenging process, but it is essential for restoring your emotional health. It involves rebuilding your self-esteem, which may have been eroded through repeated manipulation, and developing emotional resilience to protect yourself in future relationships. Distancing yourself from the abuser, either physically or emotionally, is often a crucial step to reclaim your autonomy. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you now feel ready to spot emotional blackmail before it sneaks up on you. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. It's kind of like giving me a high five, and make sure to subscribe. I promise, no guilt trips if you don't, but it might hurt my feelings. Just kidding. Stay strong, set those boundaries, and see you next time.